بإسلامي وإيماني أضاء الكون وزمن
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is your brother Najib from Deen Love, and we're back here with another episode of Good Deeds. Right, we've been doing all the reflections and stand-up deen and stuff like that, but we love the good series because the foundation of the mu'min's life are the good deeds, al-a'mal as-salihat. And so today we're here with Ustad Ammar Alshukry.
Assalamu alaikum.
Beautiful brother, we've been spending some time. So inshallah ta'ala, we told him to be always a regular here on Deen Love, and inshallah ta'ala, if we ever go to Houston,
excited, man.
If we ever go to Houston, this is our number one guy.
So the people who follow Deen Love, they call themselves the Deen Lovers.
I like that one. We didn't give him a name yet,
okay.
But the Deen Lovers.
That's a good one.
Yeah,
Deen
that's
lover.
a good one. That's
hashtag it. I'm a Deen Lover.
So inshallah, today's good deed, loving yourself, and the status of that, and what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to do with that. So Ustad, loving yourself.
So something very amazing. So we were at a conference last night, and Sheikh Kamal Makki was talking to us about one of his mashayikh, whose name is Sheikh Ja'far Sheikh Idris. Dr. Ja'far Sheikh Idris is just an amazing individual, scholar, hafidhullah ta'ala, who combined between intense study of Western philosophy and Sharia. And so anyway, he was mentioning a verse, and he says his ability to extract from the Quran was very profound. And is very profound. And so he mentioned a verse of the Quran where Allah says about the Prophet ﷺ himself. He says, لو كنت فظا غليظ القلب لانفضوا من حولك. That if you, in Ali Imran, Allah says, if you, O Muhammad, was harsh and غليظ القلب, if you were فظا غليظا, if you were like harsh against the Sahaba, stern, they would have left you. They would have dispersed from you.
Yeah.
And yet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about Fir'aun, فَاسْتَخَفَّ قَوْمَهُ فَأَطَاعُوهُ. Allah says that Fir'aun belittled his people and they obeyed him. And the result, Allah says that they were a people who were fasiqeen. They were an evil people. So the comparison here teaches us something about the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Dr. Ja'far Sheikh Idris says, this teaches us that the companions had high self-esteem. How so? Because when Fir'aun belittled his people, they obeyed him. And yet, if the Prophet ﷺ had been harsh against the companions, they wouldn't have lowered their heads and obeyed him. They would have dispersed.
Yeah.
They would have gotten out of that relationship. And so what that teaches us is the Sahaba radiallahu anhum were people who had incredibly high self-worth.
Yeah.
And when you say love yourself, that's what we're calling each other to have self-worth, to view yourself as being valuable. And the Prophet ﷺ actually, he really, how did he take someone like Bilal? You know this. If anybody has, for example, something like an accent, right? Just an accent. They came from overseas and they've got an accent.
Yeah.
Many times they're very conscious of it.
Yeah.
Right? So many times people come up to me and I'll give like a lecture or presentation or something. People come up to me and be like, "MashaAllah, it was amazing. You don't have an accent." like that's what it was, right? That's what was amazing about it.
Oh my goodness.
You don't even have an accent. I'm like,
you don't even have an accent.
Yeah, that's like what made the presentation amazing. So, how do you take someone like Bilal, for example, who was Habashi, and he grew up in Mecca? Maybe he had an accent. He definitely was the wrong skin color in Mecca. He definitely didn't have a tribe. He was a slave. He could have been bought and purchased. He could have been killed on any given day. This was what he was socialized. He could have been killed in Mecca on any given day, and nobody would have cared.
Yeah.
There would have been no hashtag for Bilal ibn Rabah. There would have been no human rights. There would have been no Amnesty International. No, he was killed by his owner, Umayyad ibn Khalaf, and he's his property, and that's it. And yet the Prophet ﷺ, so basically, he had every reason to be broken.
Yeah.
And the Prophet ﷺ took Bilal, and he infused him with so much confidence and strength that until today, Bilal, when you think of symbols of strength in Islam, you think of Ahadun Ahad, you think of Bilal ibn Rabah, you think of him coming into Mecca, in the conquest of Mecca, and standing on top of the Kaaba and calling the adhan. Like, where do you get this type of symbol of strength? How did it happen?
Yeah.
One of the ways that and this wasn't just with Bilal, this was with Ammar ibn Yasir, this was with Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, this was with all these companions who were like...
tough situations.
In tough situations, belittled, they had no tribes, they were weak, and yet the Prophet ﷺ is able to make them into leaders.
SubhanAllah.
How did he do it? One of the ways is he taught them to love themselves. And when I say taught them to love themselves, is what's the opposite? The opposite of loving yourself is to belittle yourself,
Hating
to look
yourself.
down upon yourself.
Yeah.
And so the Prophet ﷺ in the famous hadith, he says, بِحَسْبِ امْرِئٍ مِنَ الشَّرِّ. You know the famous hadith, لا تحاسدوا ولا تناجشوا ولا تدابروا ولا تباغضوا. Don't hate each other. And he says, don't turn your backs on one another and don't undercut one another. And then he says, the believer is the brother of the believer. And he goes on and on until he says, he does not belittle his brother. And then he says, it is enough of an evil that a person belittles their Muslim brother. And so the Prophet ﷺ, as part of his corrective methodology, is he would not allow for Muslims to ever belittle themselves or belittle each other.
SubhanAllah.
Even something like, saying, I'm stupid. I don't believe the Prophet ﷺ would have allowed that.
No
Why?
way.
Because people can be belittled because of ethnicity, right? You're from
A certain group of people.
you're from this country or that country, or you're from this tribe or that tribe. And the Prophet ﷺ, when people presented that to him, the famous hadith of Abu Dhar and Bilal.
Yeah.
Abu Dhar had called Bilal and he called him, O son of a black woman.
Yeah.
And so the Prophet ﷺ told Abu Dhar, he said, are you belittling him? Are you blaming him because of who his mother is? You are a person who has in you ignorance. And so he's correcting Abu Dhar right away. No, that's not funny, that's not acceptable, that's not. And so Abu Dhar, because he's not an arrogant person, he's a companion of Rasulullah ﷺ. He humbles himself immediately and he puts his cheek on the ground and he tells Bilal to step on my face. Right? If I'm going to be corrected by the Prophet ﷺ, then step on. That's number one. A person can be belittled because of the way that they look.
SubhanAllah. Of course.
You're tall, you're short, you're
Big.
heavy,
Yeah.
you're skinny, you're
Yeah.
too skinny, all of these types of things. And so Abdullah ibn Mas'ud was like that. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud was a young shepherd who grew up to be very, not tall at all. He was short, skinny. And so one time he was climbing a tree, and the Prophet ﷺ, the wind began to blow, and the Sahaba were laughing at how skinny his legs were because they could see his legs because of the wind. And the Prophet ﷺ, he responded to them laughing because you don't know what a person's insecurities are.
Of course.
A person may be insecure because of any one of these things.
Yeah.
And so the Prophet ﷺ said, أَتَضْحَكُونَ مِنْ دِقَّةِ سَاقِيهِ. Are you laughing because of how skinny his legs are? Those legs are going to outweigh the mountain of Uhud on the Day of Judgment.
SubhanAllah. Ooh.
Amazing.
That's powerful.
Like I just imagine like Abdullah ibn Mas'ud coming down from the mountain like, I'm heavy.
I'm heavy. Don't
I'm
mess
heavy,
with me.
man. Mount Uhud. So that's another reason, right? Because of a person, Zahir, and this is reported by Tirmidhi and Ash-Shama'il, or it's recorded in the Shama'il of Tirmidhi that Zahir was one of the Bedouins who used to come into Medina. He used to sell commodities in the marketplace. And so the Prophet ﷺ grabbed him from behind, and he didn't know who grabbed him. And really quickly, the Prophet ﷺ said, "Man yashtari hadha al-abd." He started yelling, "Who's gonna buy this slave? Who's gonna buy this slave?" Right? He's pretending like as if he's gonna sell him. And then Zahir said, "I almost broke free, but then when I saw that it was Rasulullah ﷺ behind me, I leaned back into him until my back touched his chest." And I said, "Idhan tajiduni kasidan ya Rasulullah." Ya Rasulullah, you're gonna find that I'm not worth anything. And the Prophet ﷺ said to him, "Anta lasta bikasid in Allah." You're not worth nothing in the sight of Allah. It's like that person who's like, "Oh, I'm stupid. I'm not. I don't know, whatever it is, right? I'm not good like you guys are. I'm not smart like you guys are. I'm not this, like I'm not." There's so many things that people belittle themselves about, and the Prophet ﷺ is saying to him, "No, you're not worth nothing in the sight of Allah."
Yeah.
And I remember I had two friends in college.
Yeah.
One friend who nobody ever insulted, no matter what.
He was the cool guy, huh?
Yeah, he was the cool guy. Other than myself, but he was another cool guy. And number two was another kid who was the opposite. Everybody would
Picked
make
on
fun
him.
of him. Everybody picked on him. Even people when they would just meet him for the first time, like we're all out to dinner, and he just met this guy like 20 minutes. He would be picking on him before the night was over.
Wow.
So I remember thinking, what is it about the first one and the second one? The first one, I realized that the reason why nobody ever picked on him, no one ever insulted him, no one ever did that, is because number one, he never did it to himself. He never did it to himself, and so what that did was there was no prototype. There was no example that people had of how to make fun of him. And so they saw, people are very social. We're social creatures. If we see everybody doing something, we do it. And if we see everybody not doing something, we don't do it. And so this guy, and even if somebody, every once in a while, somebody did do, like, insult him or something like that.
He would go after them, huh?
He wouldn't go after them, but he would just say to them, he's like, no, like, I don't accept that.
Yeah.
Like, don't call me that.
Yeah.
And then it's awkward for a second, and then that guy's like, oh, you would, and then he stops. He moves on. And so, but then that other guy was always the first to insult himself. I'm so stupid. I'm not like this. I'm not. And as soon as you say, I'm so stupid, what you do is you allow the person next to you to say what? Yeah, you are. And let me tell you how stupid you are. And let me just add on to it. And so he would be the first person to always insult himself. And so he made it comfortable for everybody else to insult him. And so people just continued to add to that. And so believing in yourself, loving yourself, and recognizing that, you know what, you have incredible self-worth. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you incredible dignity. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you iman in Him. And what more dignity than that? And what more dignity than making you a servant of His? And what more dignity than allowing you to be of His followers and the followers of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and someone who submits to Allah in Islam? There's no more dignity than that. There's no more izzah than that. There's no more honor than that. And so having that self-worth and not belittling yourself and not belittling others.
Huge. And I think if I look at back some of the key things too, a lot of the guys that I grew up with too, and the environments that we grew up with. I remember when I was in 8th grade, there was a girl who killed herself.
Allah.
Just because of a few social issues. Right? Nowadays, especially with the social media era, check out the video. We have a latest video that we talked about social media era, in which somebody will post a picture and somebody will be like, this is ugly, take it down. And that immediately changes how they feel and their mood and their way of life immediately, just because of the kalam of somebody else.
And what that does, like, the Prophet ﷺ, why is he doing all of this? Why is he fixing, like, making this like a methodology that no, you are not allowed as a Muslim? He says, بِحَسْبِ امْرِئٍ مِّنَ الشَّرِّ. It is enough of an evil for a person that they belittle their Muslim brother. Meaning, if you did not commit a single sin all day, your one sin that day was that you called someone ugly or stupid or fat or dumb or whatever, that is enough of an evil to you. Why is that? Because he's trying to create an ummah that's confident in themselves.
Yeah.
An ummah of broken spirits isn't going to go anywhere. A community that all has fractured images of themselves. What are they going to accomplish? What are they going to do? What are they going to contribute? What are they going to contribute to humanity? They're not going to do any of that. And so the Prophet ﷺ is taking all of these people and he's transforming them into amazing personalities that withstood the tests of history. I mean, you're talking about someone like Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, that guy. He became the great scholar of the Quran.
SubhanAllah.
You're talking about, he took him and he just made him into this great scholar of Quran. Abdullah ibn Abbas, so many of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam just would infuse them with incredible confidence. And that's what we need to be doing, just encouraging each other, building each other up, and pushing you guys forward, inshallah, to be the inheritors of the earth.
And something I noticed, I don't know if you noticed it, you could disagree with me on this too. I noticed that a lot of in the masajid in our communities, our elders and shuyukh, they don't give enough momentum, enough energy, enough motivation to our younger ones, especially when they see somebody coming up. Sometimes I see that they actually belittle them, step on them, so that they don't take their position, they don't level up, they don't become a threat. Do you see that, or is it just me?
Yeah, I do see that. I see that from people. I see that in a lot of masajid. I have seen that. And, they say the best leaders are not the ones who are like that. The best leaders are the ones who are expendable. Those are the leaders who are actually not expendable.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is the leader who actually develops a community so that if they were not there, the community would move forward without them.
Yeah.
That is the leader who's made themselves expendable. That is actually the most that is the best leader, and that is the leader that is the least expendable, because they're the most valuable leader.
Yeah.
You know, the Prophet ﷺ, he died and the Ummah didn't miss a step after he died. I mean, Abu Bakr took the reins, and you have Umar and Uthman, and all these people, they've been built up so much that the Ummah isn't going to fracture after them. And so in reality, you should be doing that. You should be building up the next generation, because you're not going to last forever, and as soon as you're gone, you should be willing to, you know, you have to have a community that's ready to move on without you. Absolutely. And that's what everybody should be working for. Everybody in da'wah should be working towards replacing themselves,
that next generation.
replacing themselves in that da'wah.
Wallahi, that's true. Huge topic, loving yourself. I know we didn't do justice. It should be like a whole musalsalat, ya Sheikh. A series of like hundreds of videos, just working on from confidence to self-esteem to so on and so forth.
Maybe one day, inshallah, we'll have the ability to do it, inshallah.
Inshallah. The expert.
I'm not an expert at all, but we'll need to spend some more time in Minneapolis.
All right, inshallah. Till next time, check out all of our other content.
Hold on, let's point together. Okay.
This is when we communicate with our Deen lovers, you know what I mean? That one-on-one communication.
Deen lovers, hashtag.
Deen lovers. Inshallah, till next time. Sallallahu wasallam ala nabiyyina wa ala alihi wa sahbihi.
بإسلامي وإيماني أضاء الكون وزمن بإسلامي وإيماني أضاء الكون وزمن بإسلامي